What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Sean Barnard, and I have some actual basketball to break down and talk about today. As the Sixers' first preseason game is in the books, they did suffer a loss at the hands of the Boston Celtics, but this is much more about the takeaways from the players internally, and more specifically, Jaden Springer, who stood out and made a major impact in the preseason game. In this video, I'm going to break down some of his key plays, talk about the big picture, what his role could be on the Sixers team, and dive into everything that means moving forward. Now, before I dive fully into it, I do want to make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button at this point in time. 87.8% of you guys watching this video have not subscribed to the channel just yet, so make sure you're hitting that subscribe, ringing that bell, and not missing out on any of the content that we have coming out. We got a ton of big plans for the season moving forward. As I mentioned, there is live basketball now here, so the season is upon us, and I can't wait to break down everything from start to finish, so make sure you're staying up to tune with that. Now, to dive into the storyline today, we're putting aside the James Harden drama. We're putting aside all the bigger picture discussions, and I'm going to talk about a feel-good story with the continued development of Jaden Springer. And without bearing the lead here, I want to kick things off by showing this massive block on Jason Tatum as just a preview and a flash of what he is capable of on a basketball court. Now, I don't mean this as an exaggeration when I say if that was under a different circumstance or at a different matchup at a regular season game in a crucial moment, that could very well be a signature play in the Sixers season. The athleticism to do that, the instincts to be in that position, and that was just straight up one of the more clean blocks that we have seen from anyone. That was pure ball, that was knocked to the floor, and that was going up with a Jason Tatum level of player. That's impressive stuff from a Jaden Springer, who really has not gotten much opportunity to this point in time. To dive into a little bit of the specifics of him, actually, let me kick things off by taking a look at the stat lines as a whole from the Sixers preseason game. Tyrese Maxey did lead the way with 29 minutes, 24 points, 4 assists. Patrick Beverley also in 14 minutes added 12 points on 5 of 7 field goal attempts. He also called Jaylen Brown too small in the middle of a preseason game, which I appreciate, and that's what we should come to expect from Pat Beverley. Springer himself in his 24 minutes of action finished with 14 points, 5 rebounds. Of course, that massive block on Jason Tatum as well. Tobias Harris in 22 minutes had 13 points and 7 boards. Mo Bamba in 16 minutes had 7 points and 6 rebounds. If you guys are interested in some of these stat lines, you can follow me on Twitter to make sure you're staying up to date with that. I'll make sure I'm on every game throughout the season for setting up some tweets similar to that, so make sure to stay posted. But for Jaden Springer specifically, I do want to talk about him as a whole today. We'll begin by bringing up his NBA stats here. He has not gotten much opportunity at this point in time. As we can see, getting in just 16 games last year, playing 5.6 minutes per game, all pretty much mop-up trash duty when the games are out of hand. Nothing to have a significant takeaway here, and that's a part of the Doc Rivers frustrations. It was the lack of giving a young guys an opportunity, and I think Jaden Springer is probably the biggest example of this. We've kind of pounded this table and complained for guys like Paul Reed who have not received an opportunity, but Paul Reed eventually played himself into a role. Jaden Springer, we really have no idea what he is. And to rewind a little bit to take a look at his G League stats, this is a guy that holds intrigue. And here's a look at the G League stats here. Sorry, the font is a little bit small here, but just last season at the G League level, in 30.3 minutes per game, Springer averaged 19 points. He shot 31.9% from 3. He averaged 3.8 or 5.3 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 2.4 steals. A guy that made his impact felt at each level of the field. The biggest X factor with Springer as a whole is still that shooting. I was encouraged by what I saw in the preseason. He knocked down 2 3-pointers in the matchup. He looked confident in taking them, which was a bigger deal to me. There was no hesitancy in his game, and just his overall instincts for the game are what stood out. That is where I would say he's progressed the most. Is it felt like the past 2 years when watching Springer, I got more of a chance to watch him down Delaware than I would say than at the NBA level, obviously. But I did catch a couple games down there in each season, and it felt like there was still this area of his game where he was a little unconfident in what to do or where to be or how to operate. It felt like in preseason game 1, and sure, there is plenty more takeaways that we will have on Springer, he was more locked in and cognizant of what his role is. And for Springer specifically, I think it benefits him playing alongside the NBA stars and the better players on the Sixers. Obviously, Joel Embiid and James Harden sat out of this matchup, but when you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey who is capable of being that engine of the offense, it's easier for Springer. I think he did not benefit from being at the G League and being in these summer league opportunities where he's kind of looked at to be the guy and create offensively when that's never going to be his long-term NBA role. What we know about Springer as a basketball player is right now he's a high-level NBA defender. He's a guy who can make his impact felt off cuts. He's nice and athletic. He's switchable. He has a decent jump shot. He was a 40% three-point shooter in college. It was on a fairly small sample size and something I wasn't fully bought into at the time, and we're kind of seeing that. But as long as he's just an adequate shooter, he will stick on the floor. I think he's sliding into closer of a Matisse Thybulle style of role for these Sixers, but that is still encouraging. This is a kid that is just 21 years old. I do think he'll be a defensive specialist, but he's more passable offensively than a Thybulle was. That Springer has the ability to put the ball on the floor, to dribble a little bit, to make the basic passes, and to just be confident in his own jump shot. So I am excited by all of that. And Springer specifically was asked about this block here. And once again, I will show it because I do think it is worth talking about with the Tatum block. That is an impressive play for a 21-year-old to look Tatum in the eye, to meet him at the rim, and even stare him down a little bit after. I love that out of Jaden Springer. So he was asked about this specific play to the media today at training camp. And his quote, I wanted to make sure that I pulled this up here from Springer. He said, he tried to dunk on me, and I was like, oh man, here we go. So all that, Springer is showing a little bit of the personality as well. I think that's been pretty quieted from his perspective too. He's pretty much stayed in his lane, gave all the basic answers, had kind of a media-friendly face, had a more of a scripted approach to his media sessions, I would say. So just in kind of the clips that are circling around, it looks like he's kind of let his guard down a little bit. He's getting a little more comfortable. It should be kept in mind that as much as people want to toss him in a mock trade or write him off as a guy that has not developed, it was known that this was a project player when the Sixers drafted him with the 28th overall pick out of Tennessee. That it was known it was going to take a couple years for him to reach his ceiling as a player. And during his third year in the NBA, he's still only 21 years old. This is a guy that was the second youngest player in that draft class, and he's now beginning to grow. Think about there's rookies that are coming into the NBA this season that are older than Jaden Springer, who's in his third season. Everyone's path is different. That while some guys can come in and take the NBA store from day one, there is guys that it takes time, and I think that's what we're looking at with Springer. Now, I'm not saying that this is a guy that changes the overall ceiling of the Sixers or even their long-term plans for what to do. What I do see is this is a playable rotation player. This is a good thing when these young prospects begin to turn into players that are capable of contributing in a positive way. That's what I'm beginning to see with Jaden Springer. Is I think there's going to be opportunities throughout the year where he is a benefit to the team to have on the floor. I think there will be matchups where Jaden Springer is the best option to throw at him, and I think he can deliver in these opportunities. That is an awesome thing to have and something that I don't think that we were counting on when going into the season. And as a whole, some of the bigger picture preseason takeaways from this, I'm very encouraged by what I saw from the Sixers. Yes, there was no James Harden. There was no Joel Embiid. There was no Furkan Korkmaz. All these stars sitting out in this matchup, of course. But what I was excited about is you see a little bit of the cohesion, a little bit of the style. The defense was just playing at another level than what we saw all of last year. Chasing guys around screens, switching guys in pick and roll, things that were not quite the same way last year. I was very encouraged. Tyrese Maxey, I thought specifically, was much more on the money as a defender, a guy that was capable. He was more locked in. He was getting steals. He had a nice little tag team moment with Patrick Beverley during this where they were able to strip the ball and create a turnover. I thought Patrick Beverley himself showed a little spryness. PJ Tucker looked pretty good physically. Saw some of the bad habits of Tobias Harris showing up without some of the bigger stars and more ball-dominant players ahead of him. That was disappointing. Mo Bamba, a little bit mediocre there. I wasn't incredibly encouraged by what I saw from him. Kelly Oubre did not shoot the ball very well, but he was Kelly Oubre. He did his thing. So I was encouraged by what I saw in the preseason. And Tyrese Maxey is another guy that I think is taking a step forward. I think Maxey's obviously much more indicative of what the future of the Sixers are, that depending on what his level of play will change the ceiling much more than a guy like Jaden Springer. But Jaden Springer deserves his shine in this matchup, that he is a guy that left it out there. And just to circle back from his stats as a whole, 14 points and 5 rebounds for Springer. If he's a guy that can just bring a little bit of pop in limited minutes, that benefits the team as a whole. So for all those out there who have written off Jaden Springer, who are throwing them into their mock trades to the Clippers, trying to get James Harden out of here, pump the brakes a little bit. This is a kid that might be worth waiting for. That I do believe in him as a defender. I think right now there's an argument that Jaden Springer could be the best perimeter defender on the Sixers at 21 years old, still on a rookie contract. That's a player worth holding on to. So still, we will see what expectations are for Springer. We'll see what type of opportunity could be on the table in front of him. But I'm very encouraged by what I saw from the Tennessee product. So in preseason game number 1, I am tipping my cap to Jaden Springer. I'm excited for what he can bring into the regular season. And I think he may be playing a bigger role than most realize heading into the season. Thank you guys for tuning in this video. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about Jaden Springer, what your expectations are for him this season, and if you were a person who gave up on him, and if you're changing your mind. I want to hear from you on all of that. Once again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you're not missing out on any of the content right here on Sixers Digest, and I'll be with you every step of the way throughout the Sixers season. Sean Barnard, signing off.